Hello, welcome to my Comprehending Consciousness series, where I am working to tackle some commonly used terms or phrases from the conscious community or the New Age, to try to bridge the gap a little bit between the 3D realm and the 5, right? To get people who are newly waking up, maybe, or new to spirituality in general, or maybe breaking out of ideological dogmas and things, looking to open up your scope into other ways of thinking, right? So I'm offering kind of a tour of the tip of the iceberg, so to speak, of these kind of phrases that are really personal, I guess. Subjective is kind of the word that I'm trying to use, I guess. They have very distinct and individual workings between each person. The more that you start to awaken and seek and search for information and knowledge on your own path, right? Each one of these kind of phrases that all these episodes are dedicated to are sort of like a starting line for your own personal journey, right? I think I said that last time. So I'm kind of here at the starting line, just giving you a little bit of info, a little map, and you're free to do as you please with it. So thank you so much for joining me here on episode 11, where I'm going to be talking about New Earth, Earth's Ascension to 5D or 5D Earth. People call it a lot of different things. People just call it 5D lately. I've been seeing a lot of people saying that. And so I chose the growth of this whole series sort of with the consciousness awareness spectrum, right? So trying to build off of each topic and give a little bit more and a little bit more clarity, especially with things that I feel are kind of foundational when you start to wake up or you start to go on your own, evolutionary journey. Also, the terms that I started with are really overused, and a lot of them can have kind of like a really mainstream, really shallow, kind of frivolous definitions to them. They just get thrown around, like they don't really matter. Like Mother Earth or the Matrix, woke, asleep, all those kind of things that I've kind of tackled up through now, So if you haven't seen the rest of the series, I totally recommend watching it to help build out your comprehension here, right? So in episode 11, I have chose 11 to talk about Ascension, not only because it worked perfectly that I've gotten here, and it just analytically and logically about what I've been talking about, this is the next step. Also, 11 is in numerology a master number, and it really represents the potential to evolve, the potential to become a master, the potential to be a mystic, an alchemist, the hermit who sees all is really the 11, right? It's the magician. It's that magical, mystical guru kind of number. And it represents the gateway, right? We see 1111. So many people see 1111 when they start to wake up because it's hearkening them to the gateway. It's letting them know you're the one. It begins and ends with you. And you make the door, right? You create that door and you need to walk through it as the one, in harmony with the one creator. One, right? So 11 in itself has this potentiality, right, of stepping up on the spiritual evolution. You will be presented with a choice point that will allow you to step up a notch and to really go on your own singular personal journey. And it's a very scary number of 11 because you have this strong call to reduce back to the 2, right? 1 plus 1 is 2. And if you aren't ready for that step in your journey, you will reduce and harken back into 2. Nature, codependency, being that wonderful sidekick, the best friend, really being empowered and motivated by personal relationships. And if you feel that calling, then that's the space that you're at, and that's perfectly fine, because the 11 aspects that are waiting for you next time around will still bleed in and bring you great insights and really bring clarity to you. You'll be a great advice giver, the 11-2, who's representing that 2 feeling. They are a wonderful advice giver, and that is really why they're the best friend in that position in the numerology. And so 11, hearkening down into 2, not only does it become a best friend vibe, a codependency kind of thing, and representing the pair, an ultimate lovers kind of pair. It can be a soul journey type of pairing. It can also be your representative of choice points, right? Duality, you encompassing both of your masculine and feminine, and finding that beautiful harmony of the twin flame of your own essence, right? Your own personal self journey is, and that's very important as well, to kind of feed that fire to get you ready to take the step to embody the 11. So it has that kind of theme. And so Earth's ascension, to mirror it and pull parallels to the number 11. Earth's ascension reflects this beautifully, the concept and the choice point, because Earth in itself is on an evolutionary path of its own, right? And if we look at Earth, Mother Earth, just the planet that we're on, right? And then we can also view humanity as a whole and think of it from more of like a big picture spectrum, right? And see that not only does Earth go on an evolutionary path of growth, energetic, physical, spiritual, mentally, all of that, humanity as a whole also does, right? And we can see that even just looking throughout history and watching humanity and cultures and society and everything expand and grow and change and morph, right? It's important to remember that there's structural guidance in this, though. There's the seeking of higher light, of more knowledge, of a greater conscious awareness, right? All of these things mean the same thing. And so when we think of humanity also going through this, and we are children of Mother Earth, we are children of this Earth spectrum. Our social memory complex, which is another word for just humanity, right? The whole thought body of what humanity encompasses, we can call a social memory complex, right? The memories of all of the social beings come together into a collective, the collective consciousness, right? Into a complex that is a being sort of its own validity, of its own energetic harnessing, and all of that. And so our social memory complex is on a parallel growth pattern to Earth, and it happens, and all of our great cultures knew this, with the changing of the the stars and the wobble of the Earth, the 26,000 year cycles, the flows, the graduality of how it grows. I think, if I have my notes close by, I have a great drawing. I should have brought them prepared. I'm so sorry. And actually, I would have to look through like 20 notebooks probably to find this. But so many cultures, right, talk about, and even our scientists these days, in their scientific world, they know the wobble and they watch it, and these things are undeniable. And so it's important for us to always remember, as above, so below, right? And humanity is also on this kind of evolutionary path. So what we have happening currently, and you see with the Mayan calendar in 2012 and moving into the age of Aquarius and all of that, right, that we are in a shift. And what this shift can also be called or seen as or referred to as is this third to fourth density transition, or the movement towards graduation of third density into fourth density. That is a working and a terminology from the Law of One books, and I just really love the way that it's described in those books, because it's logical, it's analytical, it really works to my left brain, scientific kind of working mind. And so that the recycling is the key for graduation, right? And at graduation for third density, it's all about the choice point of polarity, and whether you choose to align and orient your path of growth with positivity or negativity, right? And the hugest lessons within third density tend to be finding the middle ground between duality, learning the workings, learning to manifest energetically responsibly, learning how to interact with the ether and the universe around you with sovereignty, coming from and approaching this working from the heart center, right? This is the biggest thing, is that we're pulling up out of ego into the heart center, right? And it's beautiful because that same evolutionary growth through densities you can see through the 7 rays, which is another sort of esoteric way to look at it. And you can also mirror that against the chakras, right? And in Earth's chakras, right? And we're moving up out of this solar plexus center that we have been in for so long and moving into the heart center. And that choice point is, are you going to live through your truth and through your heart? And are you going to listen to that? Or are you going to divert and constrict it and restrict it down into the I need, I am, me, it must be all about me. The energy and the flow needs to be focused towards the self and the center. We must keep us for survival, That can be your choice point as well, and that can move you on in a negative growth in through densities and dimensions and all that, right? So Earth in itself, in the duality plane that it just embodies so beautifully, right? It gives us this beautiful, perfect setting to do the work within, and to really be able to weigh the odds and make the choices, make the hard points, discover really and dig deep within us as to why we make the choices that we make, where our intentions coming from, are we listening to our heart or not, are we embodying our truth or not. And that, if you can tell, is clearly been going on in the planet, definitely within at least my 30 years of my scope of life here. You can see very clearly in this humanity big picture evolution that so many people are recognizing the choice point. So many people are waking up to their consciousness and saying, wait a minute, I don't want to live subconsciously on this little wheel, like all that matters is to get to the next day in survival and keep a roof over my head. There's more to life. I want to love and embody enjoyment. I want to have a great life. I want to love the people I'm around and the job that I do and each moment I'm here. More and more people over these last years, building up to 2012 and 2020, and you can see that awakening happening, the choice point, the realization of that, and more making choices, staking their things in the ground. And you can see as well the negative has been making its choices and really putting its stakes in as well. And this is why Earth's ascension is, in all of this, is just, it works, the timing is divine, it can be no other way. It is the forging of the fire, right? And I talked about this a little bit last time, about like humanity being diamonds and Earth being, the underground mine where it's pressurized and continuous push and pull and less pressure, more pressure, working, toning, pulling off, you know, molecules that don't need, and, you know, energy that's not needed, thoughts that aren't needed, physical matter that's not needed. All these things are being broken away, being pushed down, being so that we could uncover the diamond like of humanity, right? That will be birthed through the heightened extremes that we're really seeing right now, because we're so close to that tipping. And maybe we've tipped. Some people think that the scales have tipped, and it takes so long for the big picture scope of the external world to catch up with what's actually taking place, right? That within a lot of us, especially those who've been waking for a while, you know, we're really like, wow, I see the split. There's two totally different worlds taking place on Earth right now. And you can really see that 3D Luciferian restriction that so many are bowing down to, even, you know, against their own personal good. They are side saddling their own personal growth for this collective distorted good of the system. And so the negative is really working really well right now. They have harnessed a lot of energy. They've got a lot going. They have a lot of stakes in the game because they're approaching graduation, just like positivity is. And so Earth is the beautiful container for all of it, right? She just holds space. And I talked about this in the Mother Earth episodes, like how beautifully she holds space for all of this to just take place for us, right? However, I will say that this whole episode, right, is not about humanity's ascension. Yes, humanity's ascension is happening, but that's because we are connected soul pieces, grown physicality materials of Mother Earth, you know, whether we're spirits in this body, the physical vessel, right, is a child of Earth. And so we follow her logos, her thought patterns. We embody her energy. We hear it, we feel it. And, you know, there's a fluidity between us. Always. It's this osmosis of energy that I talk about happening always. And so all of humanity, we're feeling Earth's growth. And Earth's like, I'm going whether you're not or not. You know, I'm on trajectory. She's going. And as you can see, you know, we've transitioned into the age of Aquarius, and this is what it's bringing. You know, she's leading the way for us, holding space for those who are lagging behind as well, you know. But just like a mother, she will tear herself apart for her children to try to give them the space and the time that they need and that they so deserve, right? And so she will. And we can see that tearing is happening, and is super, super painful for so many who can see what's happening, what's taking place. However, with the pain is the beauty. It's that beautiful struggle, that alchemic fire, you know, the violet flame, that Kali energy of Mother Earth, that the tough lessons, the tough love, you want the lesson, so be it kind of thing, you know, and that's what we're at right now, and that's where we're embodying right now. And it's a beautiful place because it's so full of extreme energies and feelings and the possibilities on both sides of the spectrum are fertile ground of manyness. It's ready to really, you know, anybody who's putting thought energy into things, it's happening. It's coming quickly, manifesting for good and for bad, you know, because it's that graduation time is approaching. And just like the cells that split, right? They're full of newness. They're full of all the stem cells. They're full of everything that knows everything about what it ever needs to become, and it's ready to become that. In the separation, in the conception of the 2 into 3, right? But we're still at 11. We're still at the choice point. We're riding it out here. And so more and more, you know, Earth it's going to be divided until the great splitting, or who's really to say what that looks like either. And so that's one thing that I've already pushed back past 15 minutes. So I really want to hearken here at the end and just add some importance to the fact that we don't really know. And so many of us have been awake for a while and have been wanting this to happen for so long, and who are really like out in the 5D building up, what their 5D looks like, what their communities look like, what change can be, what outside of the system parameters of this like 3D can really be. But it's so important that we slow down and that we leave space for all that are still coming there, right? We have to give them the same freedom of opportunity that we had to build our 5D how we felt, to work through what worked and what didn't, to fight our shadows through that, to move at our own pace through there, and to, leave that which isn't serving us along the way, right? And to not be pushed into anything up there in 5D, because that's what we're trying to get out of, right? And it's so important for all of us to remember these like energetic entanglements, or the lassos that the 3D has still on all of us, because Earth in itself, like, we are embodying this whole ascension change. Our physicality, we embody multidimensionality, right? We're diverse. We're through everything. There are dimensions and all these different energetic, magnetic, physicality, materials. Like, there's so many levels to Earth, to humanity, and each of us, and to Source and the universe and the transition of all planets and all of the ether around us, right? This beautiful progression of, I don't even, of the whole, I guess, is the best of the ether, of this point of the game, whatever it is. So, stay focused, right? That's what I wanted to close out with. And remember that because we're here, and yes, it's so important that we harness up into 5D, and we're pulling more light down, and that we're building and leaving, imagination space for all the best possibilities and anything we want to build. But to remember to give it time, and that it might not look like we're expecting it to look, and it might not be quick, and it might be a whole lifetime, and it might not. It might be a quick thing. Who's to say? Because I remember listening so many years ago, to Dolores Cannon, and her talking sometimes about this world split that would happen, and I couldn't grasp for the life of me what she meant. And that was somebody being awake post 9/11, like, I really woke up around that time. Even, I was kind of awakened before it spiritually, but to the 3D matrix setup, the inversions and distortions, the manipulation that takes place from these systems like the government and authority, I really woke up to that around 9/11. And even with having that idea of, okay, I see this big picture NWO kind of conglomeration of this negativeness, that's the cloud that's collecting, right? The polarity. I can see the storm brewing. And of course you can imagine plans to go along with that, because hail, thunder, lightning, all of these things, high winds come with storms, I knew that. But to see, or to have her insights, Dolores, and hear her talk about splits, and so many other, there's amazing prophecies even from Mesoamerica, Native Americans, Russia, some Irish ones that I can even think of off the top of my head, that I'm just like pulling ones that I just know right off the top of my head, that have spoke about, the splitting of the earth, or the coming of like a whole new humanity, the golden age of humanity, in the Vedas even. And it's upon us, right? But it's a working, right? It's a gradual changing. It's something that happens through osmosis. There isn't a straight black to white threshold that we're going to cross. The threshold in itself is infinite. And so each time, each day, each waking moment of consciousness, you're approaching that threshold and choosing to cross it consciously, choosing to approach it with as much conscious awareness as you can, with love and compassion, and harnessing in service to others and the one infinite creator, you know, if you've chosen that more 5D positive polarity goal alignment for yourself, right? Then every single day you really need to reunite with that service back to others and source and you know yourself, of course, because you're pulling from your unconditional love for yourself, for source. So if we can all do our little bit every single day to stay focused, to stay charged, and allow patience and space for all those to take their time, just like you took your time, you know, that's what Earth's Ascension is really about. And how we can really help others in humanity, not by shaking and waking them. And I used to think that was the way, you know. I used to be really in people's faces about the nonsense in the 3D and try to really wake people up in the matrix and stuff and get them to see. But now I'm learning that beautiful lesson from Mother Earth, right? Just holding the space, just doing you at your level, at your work, and what feels right and good to you. And that action in itself is the speaking, is the sign holding, is the memes is the shake and wake memes, you know? Just doing my work, embodying my own life in my own space is my part to the collective. You know, it reflects out instantaneously, and I don't need to do anything about that, right? But I can just hold space and patience for those who are struggling or might not make it this time, right? And that's a whole other aspect to this graduation or to the wobble or to new earth, old earth, because if there's a splitting, right, we see new earth as moving up into fourth density and approaching 5D and everything. Like there is a shadowed version of earth that is always going to remain in this 3D realm and really even kind of energetically tangled down into first and second densities, right? It's really anchored and harnessed into physicality and into a singular source. You know, it's like a funnel neck down. And so there's less conscious awareness down into those levels. And so if you choose, or unfortunately if you don't choose, that's another huge thing. And I really believe, you know, that's why Earth, Mother Earth and Logos and all of this works together with the conscious collective of humanity to really display these extremes, the negative extreme and the positive extreme, to get people out of the stands and into their own game, to get people to wake up and to say, hey, I'm the star of my own show here. This is my life here. Why am I letting anybody else run it? Why am I listening to a director? Why am I taking cues from some other actor? Why am I following or copying? I didn't come here for that. I came here for a unique expression of my singular life. I am a single fractal of all of Source, and I have a right to display the coloring, the melody, the tune that I was born into. That is my right. That is my gift here, right? As more and more of us start to embody and choose that, then you can recognize, hey, there's a choice point. Hey, how do I want to embody this? Do I want to embody this life positively, feeling good, feeling in great emotions, helping others? Or do I want to embody this life seeking more, finding resources, filling my cup, getting what I need from out there? You know? All's right in the free will universe. It's not about demonizing those who choose to seek to serve themselves. You know, they're the creator exploring that aspect of evolution. You know, there's a whole aspect of evolution down that avenue. And we have to allow that to play out. And I'll get into this a little bit more when I talk about balancing, and also I'll talk about masculine and feminine sacred energies, right? So that we can learn more about what the work here is in seeking balance and duality, because so many right now, especially it looks like a spiritual war, it is actually a war on consciousness, and it's actually not at the spiritual control level, right? It's important for us to remember that the war on consciousness is being steered by, being, led by the archons, or this gathering of negative energy has come into a social memory complex of its own, right? Just like I talked about humanity as a total. We can bring it down and we can categorize it a bit and give it into that negative orientation. And they are a collective polarity energy all of their own. And so that negative polarity, they have very strong resonance and a strong presence within the third dimension, because it's fertile ground for their working. It's very important to discover and hash out all these things we think are darkness, because it's not black and white, right? It's gray. And so if we don't know all shades of gray and everything in between, well, we're going to have a hard time finding a real, true middle mean if we don't have all of the decimals to incorporate, to add together and then divide by some total and find that true middle point, right? However, and this is my point here, is that the true spiritual evolution of how things can grow within the universe does not follow duality, and duality doesn't have an influence on alignments once we get out of certain dimensionalities, right? Certain makings of certain games and planets, worlds, whatever. We have a filter for the observer called duality. And that's for shaping and changing out the energy inside you, right? Oh my gosh, and now I pushed past half an hour. So sorry, this one is super long. But I feel that it's really important for everybody to kind of understand, because people can get kind of worried and think they're on the wrong path, think they're evil, or they're serving evil or serving shadow, or the darkness could ever get so heavy that it's going to overtake the light. However, when you have a faith-based knowing and you know infinite intelligence runs the ether space of all dimensionality, of all things bigger and smaller than just take place here on 3-4D, it's easy to support yourself with some calming knowledge that these structurings, the mechanisms and the control that the archons have and will ever be even energetically allowed to grasp, will ever be within their working, will never reach fourth density. And yes, like some of them can get up into, fifth, sixth density, seventh density, but it's super, super difficult. Not everybody can make it up there. Not a lot can even make it up there, because kill or be killed. It's one for the top. There's only so much room at the top of the pyramid, right? And that's how the negative whole vibe, whole alignment, structuring realm works. There's always the self at the top, and there's no room for others when self is the most important. And it's just so clear in infinite intelligence, in the ether, and in the way that we see things working, that you can't have a universe operate with that type of energy, everlasting, eternally, to run off its own volition, to provide space for beings to do work within, to have an evolutionary process. To have an evolutionary process in itself, it leads to higher purpose, right? Higher purpose in itself comes from a place of unconditional love. And so, of course, the negative alignment at some point, it can't get up there. It has to realize its light at some point. It has to acknowledge that one great truth that it has denied since it chose polarity towards negativity, right? Since it's chosen to hide in a shadow, because it's hiding from its own light. And once it realizes its own light, well, light's only one thing. It's creator source. And then it will be light, and then it will have slingshotted itself into out of this orchestrated octave or whatever happens, because I'm not going to claim understanding knowledge about what happens outside the octave realms, because I really just see worlds built inside of octave realms, category, flowing through 8, 9 being that gateway choice to whether you get to a new octave or not. And there's yeah, we can get into that later because I'm pushing past 35 minutes here. Thank you so much if you have stayed for this whole talk about New Earth and Earth's ascension and how humanity also ascends along with Earth. If you're interested in learning more about working with your shadow, or about you want to hear more about why I have such confidence that that negative realm can never overtake positivity, I have done a couple of blogs and even wrote some helpful tarot spreads to help you work with shadow work and get into that fear and why you have those kind of preconceived assumptions, how we can break away from that and break them down, right? So I'll leave those links below if anybody is interested in them. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me on episode 11 on Earth's Ascension. I will catch you next time.